I don't know why he's showing up as Congressman Bob Guthrie, but he is not. He's our Congressman Bob Latta, representing Ohio's 5th. Congressman, as always, great to have you on the show.
It's good being on. I'm not sure why that's showing that either. It must be the way our phone system sends out the telephone numbers. It's usually kind of a generic number that shows up on everybody's phones. So it must be whatever comes up then.
I don't know. I mean, you're calling, I'm sure, from the House audio, radio, TV studios or something, probably. And I don't know. He may have been the first one to call in our new studio on our new phone line, and it just registered as. Oh,
yeah, that could be. Yeah, I'm calling from my office. So.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Was it Brett Guthrie's former office? I don't know that I've ever talked to a Brett Guthrie, so that's even stranger.
So what does this make for how many shows now?
We are now almost at 2,500. It's episode 2,494.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. I've got nothing big planned for next week for the 2,500 show, which is, when you break it down, I mean, that's almost 8,000 hours of people in this city listening to my dribble.
Well, I'd say that with that many hours and how many shows you've done, that just shows that people are there wanting to find out what you have to say.
Yeah, and sometimes they're quite disappointed in that. Congressman Bob Latta here on the Scott Sand Show. So I got to be honest, Congressman, as I've looked over the last couple of days of the House being back in session after a summer break, governing does not seem to be a Republican strong suit in the House. I got to be perfectly honest. Is that a reflection of a slim majority? Is that a reflection of Speaker Johnson's leadership? What's happening, Congressman? Can you break it down for me?
Well, first, I don't think it's the Speaker's leadership. I think Mike Johnson's doing a very good job. And because, again, I think we go back to a couple of things. Number one, as you've mentioned, we have a very, very slim majority here. When you think of 435 members, our majority is 220. So to be quote unquote in the majority, you got to have 218. So that doesn't give you much right there. And the other thing is that people probably saw last week. We're trying to get out a short-term spending piece of legislation. Now, again, because there's 12 appropriations that need to go through, we've done 5. The appropriators, Tom Cole, who's the chair from Oklahoma, he told everyone around the 4th of July that the Appropriations Committee would get all the bills out. But he said that every Republican's going to have to vote for him. And so we got through the first 5, and then when we got to 6, 7, and 8, all of a sudden it became that we had a small group that would not vote for the rule, for the procedural votes to get these bills to the floor. And so all of a sudden everything stopped on that end, and we couldn't get it done. So, last week they tried to do the short-term spending bill, saying that, look, we'll attach what they call the SAVE Act, which is to say you have to prove that you're a U.S. citizen to vote in our federal elections. And we had 14 Republicans vote no and 2 voted present, and that sank the bill because we only had 199 vote for it then. So this week, they're working, trying to get the next, get an appropriate, because, we don't have a shutdown because, especially for our military families out there, they're not, they won't get paid. And you think that people are deployed around the world and their families are at home, and that, they got to put food on the table and pay the light bill. Well, if we don't get this thing passed, then what are we going to do? So I know that tomorrow the bill is going to be up with a kind of what there might be an anomaly in there, which would be that the Secret Service, to plus that up to make sure that they've got the money out there to defend our presidential candidates, because it's important. But that's not going to be new money. It's going to be existing dollars. So hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to get that passed and not have a shutdown, because we want to get this thing funded through the 20th of December.
Well, and there's I don't think there's any doubt, I've been saying this for a couple of weeks, that we would end up in this spot. However, what this has now done is is set up the continuing resolution for another government funding crisis the week before Christmas, which is not a good spot to be in. We keep going from 3-month CR to 3-month CR. That's not a good way to govern.
No, it's not. And the other thing is this: if we could get, last night the speaker had the showing of Reagan here on the Capitol Hill, and I was very fortunate to meet President Reagan 3 different times, and I was his back in 1984 the Reagan-Bush chair for the 5th Congressional District, and we had him in at Bowling Green State University and 3 other stops by whistle stop. But Reagan used to always say, and I quote 2 different things I think that you live by. And because, first of all, he said, if you're with me 80% of the time, you're my friend. You're not my enemy. And number 2, he'd say that he'd rather get 80% of something than go off the cliff with all flags flying. And, if you're going to move the ball down the field, you can't just keep throwing the ball, long ball every time, thinking you're going to pick up 50, 60 yards at a time. It's, as the old Woody Hayes, it was, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You got to do sometimes.
Right. Well, I mean, unless you're Colorado, then Coach Prime wants to throw the ball every time. How is Reagan, by the way? I haven't had a chance to see it yet. Is it a good movie?
I'd recommend it, especially for people that did not live through the times that when he was our president. Everybody remembers when Reagan came in 1980, that first of all, you had one side saying that he was going to blow up the world. He was reckless and things like that. No, it was Reagan that ended, the Soviet Union without ever firing a shot. And so through his governing and his personality and working together, one of the things I know Tip O'Neill, he's kind of portrayed in this that is pretty accurate, that I know Democrats at that time were upset with him, saying, you shouldn't be doing things with the president and working with him. And then what Tip O'Neill said was, how can you not like the guy? And Reagan went out there to create an atmosphere that you could get things done. And you look at during his administration of 8 years, all the things that got done. And so I think it's important that people always remember that you can't have 110%.
I was in high school during the Reagan administration, but the first Republican National Convention I attended was 1988 at the Superdome in New Orleans, and I remember his message of freedom to the RNC, his farewell address to the RNC in their Superdome in 1988. We're talking to Congressman Bob Latta here on the Scott Sands Show. Congressman, one thing that many members of the Republican caucus wanted Speaker Johnson to include in this continuing resolution was the SAVE Act. Right. Speaker Johnson kind of promised that it would be up for a vote, and then it suddenly disappeared. What happened with that, and why is this a big deal?
Well, again, what happened last week, it was included in, this is a big part of it. President Trump advocated for it, with the continuing resolution to include the SAVE Act with it. But then again, like I mentioned, if you have 16 of your people not voting for it, we couldn't get the bill across the finish line. And so the SAVE Act was part of that. And that was, if you got to get something over to the Senate, if you always continually say that we can't pass anything, we can't ever negotiate with the Senate. And you can't ever sit down in a conference committee. And this is another problem. It's just like, folks, we got to get something over there so we can say, look, this is important. And then at the same time, if it's really important to the American people, it puts pressure on the other body that we can try to get something done then. But the SAVE Act, in my opinion, was a very important piece of legislation that we had. And but unfortunately, we couldn't get it over the finish line because of the 16 that did not vote for the CR with the SAVE Act in it.
Speaking of things to save, and we're talking to Congressman Bob Latta, I believe this is now going to the floor for a full House vote. The AM radio for every vehicle is out of committee, it's out of the panel, and I think it's going to a full vote soon.
Well, and what we saw with the we had it in committee last week, and you and I have talked how important this is because again, in a time of crisis, when everything else is down, how are you going to get communications?
Well, look, that's all fine and good, but this is really about me and my show.
Well, I'll get there for you. But when you look at some people say, well, we'll have the internet, and being on the Energy and Commerce Committee and sharing communications and technology, I tell folks, no, that's the first thing that's going down. Because if it's either a natural disaster or man-made, the internet's out. And we have about 73 hardened AM radio sites around the United States, so that the whole country is covered. So in an emergency, again, this is another problem with electric vehicles. You can't, you think, well, you get out in your car, but if you have an electric vehicle and the charge is gone, you got a problem. But for everybody else who's got internal combustion engines, you can turn that radio on and get that emergency information. And that's what is so important about it. But I think, if I remember correctly, because we had 18 bills in markup, we started very early in the morning and went pretty late in the day. But I believe the bill came out unanimously.
That's good. I think there were 262 some odd co-sponsors to the bill in the House and 63 in the Senate, maybe. So hopefully this passes overwhelmingly. And I expect that this show is part of the congressional record at some point.
Well, at almost 2,500 shows, it should be.
We're talking to Congressman Bob Latta. Congressman, it's always great to have you on. I'm not going to put you on the spot with a trivia question per se, but you have an amazing grasp of the history of the House of Representatives, of the Capitol building, and there is a brand new figure arriving today for Statuary Hall from the great state of Arkansas. What do you know about this? Do you know about this? Can you tell us anything about this? Do I need to tell you who it is?
Well, Johnny Cash's statue, I believe they were going to do the unveiling right when it was at 11 o'clock today, and so the statue of Johnny Cash is over there. Unfortunately, I had meetings and I couldn't get over there for the unveiling, but people can come to and see it. It's on the second floor of the Capitol now, and because again, every state has the privilege of putting two statues in, so they have to remove one to bring one in. And Johnny Cash is they said it's an 8-foot statue, so that'll be our newest statue in the Capitol building.
Who represents Ohio? What are the statues in Ohio?
Thomas Edison replaced Governor White, who I've never quite figured out how he got to Statuary Hall. But Thomas Edison is our one. We also have Garfield is another statue. We also have now Ulysses S. Grant is another statue. And one of the things that they say, well, wait a minute, you got three, but they kind of, especially when you look at
one's a cat.
And Grant, of course, different states claim him, but he was raised down in Brown County on the Ohio River, and good thing about with Grant, he's history has totally given him his due standing as not only being for the Civil War, his generalship, but also his administration for what he was able to do. Really, it was Grant that really battled the Ku Klux Klan and shut it down in the South, and especially making sure that African American rights were being upheld down there.
Yeah, one of my favorite books on management and leadership is Cigars, Whiskey, and Winning. It was some of the strategies of General Grant. But I can't help but notice that there is currently, nor is there planned, a statue of Ryan Day in Statuary Hall. I just thought I would. There should be Alabama. I need to get Katie Britt on the phone. I need to get Katie Britt and Tommy Tuberville on the phone to talk about getting a statue of Nick Saban in Statuary Hall.
But I got to go back. It's kind of like on U.S. stamps. You have to be deceased to get there.
Oh, do you? Oh, that's a shame.
I think it is. So
wait a minute. You're telling me Garfield is dead? Garfield's dead? It's the worst news of the day. Congressman Bob Latta on the Scott Sand Show. Congressman, we'll talk to you soon.
Scott, have a wonderful day, and congratulations next week on 2,500.
Thanks.